Today I talk about my top 5 tarot decks that are released in 2020. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Casper the Boy Diviner and I talk about tarot decks, oracle decks, all my divination stuff, anything magical. I do it on this channel, so if you enjoy this sort of content, feel free to like and subscribe. It really helps me out. There are a lot of takes on this subject every year. Do I talk about my top 5 that I bought in 2020 or only those that have been released in 2020? Or do I talk about my top 5 decks of all time at this point at 2020? Today I'm talking about the release ones because honestly, talking about my top 5 overall, that was really hard just thinking about it, so I just gave up. Talking about the decks that I bought this year, I don't know if that's fair or helpful to people because, you know, everyone buys things at a different time. I thought the most helpful one would be this one, the top 5 tarot decks that I released in 2020, in my opinion, based on what I've bought. Cause it narrowed down the scope a lot more. I didn't buy all the decks that were released in 2020. I only bought a select few that I felt like were already suited for me. And then out of the select few, there were some that were clunkers and that I already sold away or given away. I'm left with only this amount. And from this amount, it was easier to suss out the top 5. So without further ado, the 5th deck in my top 5 that were released in 2020 is actually the Tarot of Passing Showers. This is a deck created by a Singaporean artist and it's actually on MPC, so it's pretty easy to find. It's a linen finish and these are the backs, which are really beautiful. I do feel like the backs are not very congruent with the fronts, and I'm so sorry about the lighting, guys. It's raining in Singapore and I needed to get this out because I'm behind on my filming schedule due to my reservist. So anyway, without further ado, I really enjoy this deck. I really enjoy the art. It is a beautiful deck. I like the colors, the non-colors, you know, there's a mix of the few. I do have a few niggles with some of the design choices, like the writing and the black borders that are not truly black. But apart from that, the art is really sound, the art is really interesting. If you actually get the write-up of the deck from Valerie, it is really very interesting to find out how she saw these different cards. This deck really is more of a shadow kind of deck, and that's why I don't use it as often. Sometimes I don't feel like I'm ready to face the shadow, and yet I do feel like there's a gentleness to it still. So there's a very like a very mixed kind of feeling. Like it is kind but really harsh. I don't know if that makes sense. So I would compare this to the El Goliath but with color and a bit more gentle because it doesn't have the bold lines that the El Goliath has, but it has the same shadow kind of work in this deck. Every time I see this deck, I feel a bit of a visceral feeling, especially like in this card, the Four of Swords. Can you see how people are just walking around and not even noticing him lying on the floor? So it adds a lot of layers to the standard meanings that we know in the RWS. Valerie studies the Thoth a lot, so there could be some allusions to the Thoth. I haven't studied enough Thoth to actually recognize it in these images. This is the 5th deck for my top 5 decks that were released in 2020, Tarot specifically. I might do one for Oracle, let me know if you're interested because, you know, I don't know if I should do Oracle since I'm not the best, and I already did a whole video on all my Oracle decks if you haven't checked that out. Let's move on to the 4th deck that I picked, and it's the Star Spinner Tarot. I have not touched this deck in a while, but I really enjoy this deck. It is very fairy tale inspired, so if you watched my walkthrough, you will know that I know some of these stories really intimately, and this helps me really connect with the deck. The only thing about this deck is that sometimes I feel that some of the pips are a little less, they stand out a bit less compared to other cards, and that's why it doesn't feel that balanced. The amount of detail, the lack of detail in others, the overall the cards don't feel like you can see in this one, the Chariot. Can you see how undrawn some of the parts are compared to, let's say, the hair in the Star? So I believe it's a purposeful design choice. At the same time, this unbalanced feeling does get to me a bit, and that's why I don't use this as often any longer. But checking it out again, looking at it, I do really enjoy this deck, and this is why it is the 4th deck I would choose for all the tarot decks that were released in 2020. Yeah, and this card, this is the card that maybe pushed it down a little. I really don't enjoy this card in the whole deck. I enjoyed the concept. I just wish he wasn't in the business suit because everything else is so fairy tale driven, you know? Everything else has dwarves or Rapunzel, and then there's a business suit guy looking at time. Nevertheless, it is a very fun deck. It is a very beautiful deck. I really like Trungles. So it is something that is really... It is something that really draws me and really helps me. I really enjoy this deck basically, and I would use it more. I probably wouldn't use this for other people just because I don't know how people will take this deck. They might find that I don't know. If you haven't watched my other video about the decks I choose for other people, you will know that I try not to pick a cartoonish or cutesy decks, and I don't know if this one veers too closely to the cutesy part. Let me know what you think. Is this a deck that is safe to use for your clients? The third deck that I chose for the top 5 decks that were released in 2020, Tarot only, is the Lost Holo Tarot, and this was just released very recently. And yet I'm confident enough to put it in the top 3. Again, I am a bit biased because I do really enjoy Pixel Accord's art. If you don't, then maybe this deck is not for you. But the linen finish, even though it's not the highest quality linen, I would say it feels similar to the Tarot of the Passing Showers. The art is so amazing. Shuffling it feels good. I have nothing bad to say about this deck. Maybe there are 1 or 2 cards that are not my favorite. If you watched my walkthrough, you would know. But cards like this one, look at this one, Peace. Beautiful. I don't know what else to say about this deck except how much I really enjoy it and how much I recommend it to anyone. It does allow you to use the RWS or the Thoth depending on what you want. I guess the only niggle is that he didn't use the word lust, which is fine by me. Even the court cards are kind of non-binary. He doesn't make all the queens female, he doesn't make all the kings male. It really depends on what comes up. Have you ever seen such a beautiful 6 of Cups? I really enjoy the 6 of Cups. You can see that self-indulgence, the self-love in that deck, in that card. If you have his other cards, if you have his other decks, you can see the allusions between each deck. You can see how he has learned between each deck. It is very interesting. So this would be number 3 out of all the decks that I have that were released in 2020. Now we're at our top 2, and I don't think the top 2 will be a surprise for anyone. I've talked about these 2 a lot, and they keep switching places. For now, again, I have pushed the Tarot of the Holy Spectrum to number 2. I have already raved about this deck again and again and again and again. I love the concept. I love that the backs are just black. I love that the edges are black. There's a sense of reaching out to the void. And then beautiful cards, just beautiful cards. Again, he doesn't conform to like the strict gender binary. Can you see that the Emperor is a woman here? And then there are strange cards like this one that feels a bit more detached, a bit more alien. And then there are those that are warmer and those that you really can identify yourself with. Can you see this? And then the 10 of Wands. I love the white space here, the purple that just stands out. The only small thing I don't really enjoy that I think he's keeping in the second edition is how the court cards are just one color. I think it makes sense, but it just isn't that appealing to me in some cases. Like this one, it makes sense. This one is so clear and beautiful. But like the King of Wands, I don't like the green. I feel like the lack of texture is the problem. If you look at this one, there's texture because of the rain, you know. And the Ace of Pentacles is beautiful. How close up it is, how you can see that plant. And then the 6 of Wands is coming home. That is your reward, that is your victory. With the RWS is them coming back from the war with victory. It is less of a victory but more about the coming home. He focuses on the coming, I mean it's not, but he focuses on the coming home aspect of things. The Magician, the World. You know, he has done a second edition art already, and I'm tempted to get that one just because, you know, I really like this deck. And there are some changes, like the World, I think he has changed this one to look like something else, and I haven't really looked at all the differences, but I am tempted to pre-order Death. Very beautiful. This is such a beautiful card. So I would say This is my second favorite right now. It was my favorite for a while, and I think you would have seen some videos talking about it as my favorite, but right now it's my second favorite. And to no one's surprise, my favorite deck right now is the Botan Tarot, or Botan Tarot. I don't know how to pronounce this. I would say Botan because, you know, I learned British English, so that comes naturally to me. Dance instead of dance. Again, these cards just shuffle amazingly. The box is a bit strange, but I glued the ribbon, as you can see, so there's no problems with it now. The cards shuffle like a dream. This is really the best texture I've ever felt in a deck of cards. This linen is different from all the other linen that I've shown, like the Lost Hollow Tarot. This one is sturdy. It feels great. I feel like it gives a very canvas feeling when you look at it. When you look at it close up, it's a very canvassy feeling, and I really enjoy this deck. The backs are amazing as usual. I've talked about this in my favorite card backs, but the art all comes together, especially with the stories that she wrote in her zine. I've stopped using this deck for a while just because I wanted to try other decks, but I cannot rave more about this deck. There are some majors that I don't really enjoy, of course. No deck is perfect, but this has really got to come close to perfect as much as I feel. You see, I'm stumbling over my words. I don't even make sense. This is the closest to perfect I've found in a deck. This is the closest to a soul deck that I've found in a deck. You see, the star is not one of my favorites. I don't like the star, the moon, and the sun in this deck. I felt like they were very static. I don't feel like they bring out the nature of the card enough. But everything else, so beautiful. I can't wait to get back to this deck and use it more. But this is my number one deck this year. This is my number one deck that was released this year. Other decks that I got this year that did not make it include like the Stunning Tarot, includes the Primordial Tarot. These are decks that I already gave away. The Philosophy cards, they didn't make it. They are not even close to how much I like these 5 decks. Sadly enough. So what about you? What are your 5 decks that you bought this year? Out of the 5, which are your favorites? How many decks do you buy this year even? Because I know some people didn't even buy decks, and I applaud them so much because I didn't do that well for my depth year this year. I think I might try it again next year. I have not thought too much about it. I think Laura came up with a great video that I haven't watched yet about depth year, and I can't wait to dig in. Yeah, and let's see how it goes. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys enjoyed my top 5. If there's something I'm missing, let me know that I have that maybe was released that I didn't think about. But I really took notes about what I bought this year, so I'm pretty sure these are my top 5. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was interesting for you. And please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me out. And you guys have a great rest of the day. You take care. Bye!